Black Widow, and Tony Stark. Yeah man, I'm starting the list off with a wild one. So in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, they get a little close. Closer than the MCU relationship, that's for sure. So Ultimate issue 3 opens with this shot, and the shot is all of the Ultimates just hanging out in Tony's mansion, and then there's a sex tape playing in the background, and that sex tape being Iron Man and Black Widow. So what's the deal? Why does this exist? Well, in the Ultimates 2, her and Iron Man dated and even got engaged. But it's all lies. Lies, I tell ya. She was trying to destroy the Avengers for the fall of the Soviet Union. That was like her payback. That is, until she's killed by, you guessed it, Hawkeye. Nope, you didn't guess that, because that would be crazy. Imagine if this is how she went out in Avengers Endgame. That scene with her and Hawkeye could have been a bit more wild, and maybe a bit more emotional. Just kidding. That gets me every time. So after she's dead, the tape gets released. People are selling DVDs on the streets about it. Hey, hot dog, no, what about Iron Man and Black Widow bumping uglies? What do you say? New York, New York. I don't know. I like taking risks. I like doing New York accents. Deadpool gets around, and so does Mystique, in fact. So it's only fair to assume that the two ended up crossing paths at some point. In holy matrimony even? Maybe. So in Deadpool number 27, titled The Wedding of Deadpool, we find out that Mystique and Wade were married. That would be the best wedding of all time. Well, the love wasn't true or strong enough to last, as shortly after he asked her to sign the divorce papers. He's also been married quite a bit, so this isn't his first divorce rodeo, that's for sure. So why didn't the couple work out? Well, Mystique, being Mystique, was actually just using Wade, sort of like a way into Weapon X so she can steal some files. Classic Mystique move. The issue itself is quite enjoyable and funny. We even see Wade visit the lovely Niagara Falls. Maybe he goes over in a barrel, I'll never tell. Christine Everhart. We start in Iron Man 1, released back in 2008. The film that kicked off the MCU pretty much. We have Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, having a great time in Vegas, as most billionaires do. After being approached by Christine Everhart after winning his Apogee Award, she conducts an on-the-spot interview with Stark, asking about the nicknames that have come to light during his military weapon deals. Nicknames like Merchant of Death or the Da Vinci of our time. Stark responds in his usual confident, cocky manner, and at one point in the conversation, Christine asks him if he ever loses an hour of sleep while accumulating his riches. He responds with, "I'd be prepared to lose a few with you." And it works! This reporter ends up sleeping over at the Stark Malibu mansion and is greeted by Tony's future wife, Pepper Potts, where she refers to her as trash. Now, of course, the scene is to set the character for Stark, but Christine still wants to take him down. She's the only one left sitting after Tony announces that he is Iron Man at the end of the film. Again, from the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610 to be specific, the siblings are pretty close, naturally. In Avengers Age of Ultron, the two go from being villains to eventually becoming Avengers by the end of the film. And when Hawkeye said to Wanda, "You're an Avenger now," I exhaled loudly. That was awesome. I had my big 3D glasses on, I look like a scuba diver, I'm just sitting there like, yes! Awesome. And then Quicksilver died saving Hawkeye. Again with the goggles. I was like, no, yes, and then no. So change is inevitable and can happen quite fast. The two got a little too close though in the Ultimates. Again, this Ultimate series is quite risque, if I can say that. So sure, this was an alternate version or whatever, but you can't unsee some stuff. In the third issue of the Ultimates, the Wasp is like, man, they sure do love each other. And Cap's like, yeah, of course they do, they're family. Why was he so mad that I commented on her outfit? That's weird. And then the Wasp is like, dude, like he loves her, like, you know, loves her. And then Cap gives the funniest facial expression and goes, but yeah, we all said that, man. We all made the same face, my dude. This is one that audience members have talked about seeing for a while on the big screen. Like, they want this. If the MCU had worked so that Bucky and the Avengers got more time to hang out, this might have ended up happening. I could see it. I think there's more to Natasha and Bucky, because in the comics, Bucky trains Nat in the Red Room. And then in the MCU, Natasha talks to Steve about the Winter Soldier and how she's tried to stop him before. So she knows about his existence in that universe, just how much we don't really know yet. But with Black Widow being a prequel to Iron Man 2, I feel like we're gonna see some sort of flashbacks or something that involves Bucky. I think it's going to be full of cameos. Natasha was given this serum in her origins, of course, and I hope they include this in the movie where she ages slower. So her and Bucky are around the same age in the comics, funny enough. And she knows him as James back in the day, you know, before the Winter Soldier stuff. So could the comic book hookup just be a one-time thing, or will we see some sort of flirtatious behavior with the two in her solo flick and some saucy flashback scene? Let us know below. Do you want to see this? Is this kind of like a weird thing? I know people want Bucky and Cap to be like a thing. We were all rooting for it, but hey, it's never too late. Say what? Okay, this one's pretty interesting. So what happens when you get a super lawyer and a super criminal? Well, you get a night of romance for some reason. Uncanny X-Men issue 435. We see Juggernaut and he just kicks Rhino's ass. And then he has the perfect opportunity to escape the holding cell that he's currently held in. So Jen Walters, aka She-Hulk, asks him the pressing questions. Why the change of heart, Kane? You're a criminal. Why didn't you just leave? She thinks it's part of this master plan, this act of kindness, saving the guard from Rhino, and then willingly being detained again. She thinks it's a scam, rightfully so. So they start to talk about baseball a bit, you know, getting all casual, and then the final question. Jen goes, what do you think about women's rights? He smiles, she smiles, and then we get this glorious next shot. The shot where they're in bed, like the wall is broken, the nightstand's just on the ground, the lamp's messed up. It's all, the place has gone to shit. And the craziest part about all of this, the windows are just wide open. I mean, this whole thing ended up retconned so that She-Hulk was a doppelganger from an alternate Earth, but this is still pretty weird. So as we saw in the X-Men movies, they're pretty lovey-dovey and they've got a nerdy, cute relationship going. James McAvoy, Rose Byrne, they're unreal actors. It was super enjoyable to watch them. Now in the movies, he makes her forget a bunch of stuff for good reason, right? It even adds to their dynamic a bit because after, he's obviously still into her and she's like, hey, nice to meet you for the first time ever. Never met this guy before. It's a pretty sad situation, but cute nonetheless. But it could have been way worse. See, in the comics, he at one point straight up abandons Moira and their child to go after his own dreams. Dude's a real go-getter. More like a go leave her. Yeah, I'm gonna leave, sorry. This one would never happen in the MCU, but just imagining it is pretty hilarious and weird. So yeah, in the comics, they were a thing. There was this sort of love triangle actually that happened going on with Pepper, Tony, and Happy. So once Happy was hired as Tony's new bodyguard, Happy and Pepper started to bicker, kind of argue a little bit, and through that they ended up becoming pretty flirty in nature. Kind of like in high school when somebody makes fun of you, it's because they usually end up liking you a bit in the first place, you know, it's like playful banter. So Pepper and Happy ended up getting married. That is until Happy met his demise in the Civil War storyline. Sads. I honestly feel like Happy and Aunt May are gonna do this whole marriage thing in the MCU. Like this is gonna happen to them. Like by the time that happens, Peter will probably end up running the Avengers. So I'm sure he'll take the spot of Tony when it comes to commenting on the weird relationship between the two. Only I'm sure it will be more lighthearted and fun in nature. Kind of like what we saw with him in Far From Home. Solid dynamic, I'm here for the both of them. Or maybe Spider-Man is gonna get pissed once Happy dies and that's gonna be like his way of like coming back in. Or maybe Aunt May will die and then he'll be even more pissed. Oh my god, we have a lot of things to work with. We go now to Marvel Team Up issue 82, Spider-Man and the Black Widow. Now at this point, Nancy Rushman has entered the chat. Black Widow looks like Black Widow, but inside here, it's actually Nancy Rushman, school teacher from upstate New York. Got it? Yep. Cool. The issue begins with Nancy outside when a couple of New York punks, try and steal her bag. Spider-Man of course swings in and saves the day. Mostly he starts the thugs off and then Nancy delivers the final blow, saving Spider-Man back. Nice. He sees the Black Widow suit in her bag, but she doesn't even know what he's talking about. She is fully convinced that she is a school teacher and not in fact Black Widow. Spider-Man's like, no, you just took that guy out. You're for sure Black Widow. Look at the suit. But still, nothing. So Spider-Man offers her the suit of the Black Widow, to Nancy Rushman, and attempts to keep her warm, maybe bring some memories back in her head, find out what's going on. So Spider-Man sees her in the outfit and comments on how nice she looks. Real nice. So she gets the outfit on and it of course fits perfectly. But this doesn't jog her memory. Despite how good the suit may feel, the memories just aren't coming back. And then in comes the S.H.I.E.L.D. strike force with the plans to shoot Black Widow, Spider-Man even getting grazed by a bullet in the process. Just then there's a moment where Nancy's body acts by itself almost, and then she lunges forward and strikes the strike force member and takes him down with ease. She's of course still confused, and they end up sticking together for a bit, and then in issue 84, Nancy goes in for the kiss, and Spider-Man has no idea what to do. He likes Widow, but this Widow lookalike doesn't act like her, so it's a weird thing, and in Spider-Man's words, these are the wrong feelings in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, you could definitely say that again. She ended up getting her memory back, and the real Black Widow wasn't as into the web slinger as he hoped for. Poor Peter Parker. What the f? Yeah, you heard me, folks. Beginning in the Amazing Spider-Man number 509, this one is quite odd, to say the least. So Peter gets this letter, right? And the letter that is supposedly from Gwen Stacy, although she's dead. So Peter does a little detective work and runs some DNA tests on the letter. He comes to find out that Gwen Stacy had actually secretly given birth to twins. Mary Jane finally ends up filling Peter in on this dark secret. Gwen Stacy had a secret affair with Norman Osborn 7 months before she died. What's the opposite of air horns? I feel like that's what should be playing loudly right now. Mary Jane even had a conversation with Norman about it. She said she doesn't want Norman to take care of the kids, or else they're just gonna turn into another Harry Osborn. Pretty solid line. Norman's exposure to the Green Goblin formula caused these kids to be born early, and they came out fully grown. Ouch. This one is juicy. Imagine you're dating somebody and then you find out that they're actually an adopted sibling. Like, that's a weird conversation to have. I mean, you're not related, sure, but like, that's still weird. That's a very weird thing to do. That's exactly what happened to Kurt Wagner. Kurt grew up with Jermaine Sardos. He was adopted by her and her mother, and they of course became close, being the new siblings and all. But then things get amazing, okay? So Kurt started to date a woman named Amanda Sefton, okay? And then she turned out to be Jermaine in disguise. Surprise, dude, that's crazy. Now, normally when you find something like this out, you're a little upset. You've been deceived. You're obviously confused, and you're probably pretty angry. I mean, one would assume. But Nightcrawler is totally cool with it. He's like, you know what? I'd be more demonstrative about it, but I don't want to set a bad example for Kitty Pryde. Yeah, or you could respond like that. That's one way you could come back. This dude is not fazed by this at all. He's like, yeah man, I basically have 2 girlfriends. What's up? Deadpool's on this list, of course, and it's for good reason. One of the crazy relationships that he's been in was one with death. Now, with Deadpool dying as often as he does, he of course has seen the face of death, and he's a fan. In Deadpool The End, we find Deadpool finally getting close to death, long term. Finally. Even when Mephisto pipes in, Deadpool responds with, "Can it, dollar store Devilman crybaby? I've been angling this hookup for like a century to get here." And the top priority for Wade? To get to the ever-lovin' after ever-livin' Nookie. While Thanos is normally the one who's been Death's boy toy, it's nice to see a comic where Wade finally gets that relationship. And it's super hilarious and of course, super sexual. A lot of innuendos in that one, check it out. Wade Wilson in love? Sign me up. So, when the unlikely lovers were battling it out with Black Tom Cassidy and Juggernaut, Banshee was like, look girl, he's insane, he's a murderer, he's a madman, I tell ya. Warpath was eyeing her down, but she just couldn't help it but flirt with Wade Wilson. I mean, can you blame her? If I met Ryan Reynolds, I'd probably flirt. I'd be like, hey man, I love AJ Aviation Gin, I drink it every morning. What? SIRYN saw past all of that, and she even overlooked his ugly appearance. What a gem. So this is pretty nice, and Deadpool likes it. He feels happy, almost. Huh. Deadpool says over time that she became the voice of reason and sanity in his head. So the two had a deal. She would still see him as long as he behaved. Warpath, though, he wasn't a big fan. But who cares? Love is in the air.
I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
Age is just a number, I guess. When it comes to Marvel romances, they aren't really the most healthy of romances, you know? When the two first met in X-Men issue 129, she's said to be 13 years old. They're trying to recruit her to go to Professor X's school. Colossus is like 18 at the time, or so we think. Now, in the Days of Future Past storyline beginning in X-Men 141, we see Kitty and Colossus married in the future. Nice, I think. That's another thing though, like back to the 14-year-old part, because that's the craziest point that I'm trying to make here. They had their first kiss during the space mission, and right before they kiss, Kitty is even like, oh, I wish I was older, and Colossus is like, so do I. And then he explains how serious he's being by kissing her. And cue the police, send them in guys. We got him, roll it down, let's go. And then after the kiss, he's like, oh, you're not older, like you should be older. And Kitty's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, no, it for sure does matter. I'm like, yeah, you just kissed though. It kind of feel like you're already nailing that confident, buddy. Yeah, this isn't the right time or place. More so, time. That's a big time, that 4-letter word. That's the main thing here. The stud has for sure had a few hookups in his day, but one of the most wild one-night stands has to be from Iron Man 3. We start the movie in a flashback to New Year's Eve of 1999. We have Tony, again, before he's a superhero, so he's just super rich and cocky, and of course uses those skills to persuade the scientist, Maya Hansen. Stark actually bailed on his meeting with Aldrich Killian for this night with Hansen. And of course, Killian's character arc began this night being upset at Tony for giving him the cold shoulder. The next morning, Maya wakes up to no Tony beside her, rather a note. And those two ended up being the masterminds behind Project Extremis, which of course caused a lot of trouble. And it all came down to that one fateful New Year's Eve back in 1999. Not a good call. Not a good call, Tony. Ultimate, guys. Ultimate, yet again. So, after Ultimate Spider-Man issue 66, Wolverine is a total creep. Now, that may not come as a total shock, but here are the facts. Wolverine and Spider-Man switched bodies, like the change-up, or I guess Freaky Friday would have been a better example. Mesmero switched their bodies, so Peter was like, hey man, I really need you to go to school. Like, we're 15, we kinda gotta go to school. While Wolverine was in Peter's body, he at one point ended up kissing MJ and even tried to sleep with her. Dude, huh? Yeah, I guess those walks to school with her made him realize how awesome she was. MJ told him she wants to wait until they're older for that kind of thing though. So thank the Lord, nothing like that happened. But there was a kiss. Yeah, this one's weird. So in part 1 of this list, I had mentioned that Wolverine, when he was with a young Mary Jane Watson, which is just a wild time. If you haven't seen part 1, you gotta go watch it. It has some fun stuff in there. Turns out he has this weird history as well with Squirrel Girl. And this has been speculated for a while now, and it comes down to a simple page of text. In New Avengers issue 7, we see the two talking as if something had happened. Something rather intimate, that is. A little intimate. Squirrel Girl is like, well, I hope we can agree to be professional, you know? And Wolverine's like, of course. You look amazing. And she's like, oh, you do look good too. There's just something there. This is not a conversation, like I don't catch up with my buddies and be like, hey, how's school? Good, you look amazing. You do too. I'm like, yeah, let's be professional. They're like, oh, what? Why wouldn't you? This is a normal thing. This becomes more evident come Wolverine issue 8. Emma Frost had entered Wolverine's mind and literally found a room called Sexual Fantasies. And then Emma's like, I know I'm gonna regret going into this one. And maybe she was right, because upon opening the door, none other than Squirrel Girl herself is hanging out in this room. Proof? I don't know, proof of a weird fling? I think so. Our boy Howard the Duck was in the final lineup for Avengers Endgame. Check it out. So of course I gotta talk about his love life too. In one scene in the movie Howard the Duck, Howard gets close to the singer Beverly Switzer, like in bed close. Real close. Now we might not see this exact scene in future Marvel movies. I mean, I hope we do. Could you imagine if they did? I mean, it's one thing for two soups to jump in the sack, but Howard the Duck, he's a duck. Too weird for me and my friends, too weird. I don't know about this one. But if you want to see what Howard the Duck is all about in full force, for sure watch his movie. It's a classic 80s flick, which just got the whole 80s thing. Got Michael J. Fox in there. It's great. And also the practical effects for Howard the Duck make this cute scene extra creepy. It just doesn't look very comforting. This next one is for the fans out there that aren't too heavily into comic books. So in the first Avengers film, we get our first look at Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. This happens moments before the Hulk tries to take out Natasha, aka Black Widow. So that's the first interaction with the pair. That's a pretty rocky start. Even when Nat tries to recruit Banner, he's not too fond of the idea at all, as normal Banner. And then by the time we get to Avengers Age of Ultron, we hear Stark say the words, "You and Banner better not be playing hide the zucchini," to Natasha, which for starters is an amazing line. No idea how that made the final cut of the movie. Secondly, this is a nice confirmation that Banner and Nat are hooking up. You even see some on-screen romance when they're at Hawkeye's secret Farmville house, you know? The most notable part of the relationship is that Natasha can get the Hulk to revert back to Bruce by touching her hands to his. She's like, hey big guy, sun's getting real low. And it works like a charm. And Nat gives her trademark smirk as he cools down in the forest. It's not an easy task to do either. I mean, Thor tried to do it in Thor Ragnarok, but I mean, we all know how that ended up. Now, whenever Wolverine is in the picture, you know somebody's gonna get hurt, whether it's physically or emotionally. So Storm and Wolverine were always flirtatious. They were the cool kids of the X-Men. They didn't exactly get involved with a lot of the drama. They were too cool for that, you know? Besides, Wolverine was too into Jean Grey anyway, so his hands were full. Now, after a divorce, that's a tricky time to do stuff. Even flirting with a coworker after a divorce, it just looks way worse now more than anything. The timing is just ill. Storm divorced Black Panther and then things got interesting. The two of them ran the Jean Grey school and hit it off. Now, the two of them could have just gone on to become the best of lovers, but Wolverine had to go ahead and die, not giving the relationship the proper light of day. Peter Parker, of course, is the web-slinging friendly neighborhood hero and does what he can do to keep the people of New York safe. The little people. But underneath all of that, he's still just a young dude. And it's one thing to have a recurring villain, somebody that matches the hero's abilities, you know? Usually the villain will end up having a similar story, so that the hero and villain relationship is kind of even, right? So when it comes to Black Cat, she of course has been caught by Spider-Man many times, being a cat burglar and him being Spider-Man. They will definitely jump into each other. They have this weird relationship, but it's super interesting. Like, he's a hero, she's a criminal. I'm actually still waiting to see a proper Black Cat Spider-Man dynamic on the big screen. They're close. They're very close to getting him. He even told her his real name. So Black Cat, aka Felicia, was a cat burglar just like her dad. But after she dates Spider-Man, she starts to become the good guy, and it's awesome. She's always fascinated me as a character. This relationship, even in Spider-Man PS4, their relationship and how they work together causes some raised eyebrows with MJ. Peter's like, yeah, me and Black Cat are doing this cool DLC mission together. And she's like, oh yeah, cool. Be back before 11. Have fun with Black Cat, the lady who might be the mother of your kid. Also, you might have a kid, so that's neat. Cool, I'm gonna go watch The Goonies on Blu-ray. See ya tomorrow, I guess. God, my life sucks. We were on our way to seeing this relationship form in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we were introduced to Felicia, played by Felicity Jones. In that same movie, Gwen Stacy bit the dust. The Amazing Spider-Man 3 would have set this relationship up so nicely, but it never happened. Bye, Felicia. We all love Magneto. I mean, it's kind of hard not to. In Secret Wars 1, issue 3, the pair actually have a one-night stand. Ew. So, she even said that Magneto is a great kisser. I mean, look at him, he's got the hair, he seems confident. So here's the kicker, Magneto was apparently drugged. Yeah, it was revealed from Jim Shooter, the guy who wrote the series. He said that Magneto was accidentally drugged. So he was all extra lovey-dovey, and that was of course a factor. So Magneto was head over heels for the Wasp, not really one to hook up and then bounce, you know? Like, he actually really liked her. But the Wasp, on the other hand, was like, yeah dude, that was a one-time thing. Michael Fassbender and Evangeline Lilly, honestly, I'm here for it. She's got the sass and he's got the, well, sad face, so, you know. It would work out. Now, at the start of Endgame, we see Tony Stark and Nebula stranded in space after the events of Infinity War. The two weirdly got along. I mean, yeah, they both bonded over losing a massive battle that resulted in lots of their family and friends dying, so it's kind of easy to let bygones be bygones, you know? Tony and the daughter of Thanos in one ship playing games, you gotta love it. Now, what if I told you that this isn't the first time Tony has gotten close to one of these mad sisters? Tony and Gamora, believe it or not, have hooked up before. So the panel starts with Gamora being all shy and cool. She has like her drink and she's like, oh, you're gonna have to do better out here. And then Tony responds in his classic Tony Stark manner, I can do better. And then it immediately cuts over to the next page of both of them lying in bed. He's all tucked into the blanket, like the shell head looks like he's shell shocked, to say the least. And then Gamora's chill about it. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to the bar. And Tony's like, alright, cool. And then after she leaves, he lets out a small, ow, which, pretty obvious. A lot of people overlooked this moment from X-Men Days of Future Past, but it's actually a great example of who Logan is deep down. In Days of Future Past, Logan's mind was sent back in time to 1973. That's a while back, so he can prevent Mystique from killing Trask. Now, the second he wakes up in this past, it's meant to be a comedic moment. He's in a room that's decked out in 70s gear, and he wakes up next to a woman in a waterbed. A waterbed? I don't know how anybody could sleep in those things. Imagine having a few drinks and then laying in a waterbed. Oh my god, I threw up so quick. But he wakes up next to a mobster's daughter. He was being paid to keep her safe, so of course he runs into a bit of trouble, having to kill the mobsters that enter that room because they, of course, found them both together. Not professional at all, Logan. Not professional at all. Also, if he just kept his distance, those poor mobsters would still be alive. They have families. They probably have bills to pay. Okay, I have to include this one because when I saw this for the first time in theaters, we all went nuts. So I, of course, will see movie premieres. Like, as soon as the movies come out, I'm there, right? Middle row, I got my glasses on. I'm there an hour early. I don't drink water all day. I'm just trying not to go to the washroom. This is it. This is my goal. Because one, I want to see the movie as soon as possible. And two, I love hearing other people have the same reaction as me at the same time. So when we meet Sharon Carter in Captain America, it's revealed that Peggy Carter was her aunt. and she wasn't just an ordinary neighbor to Steve Rogers. So this dude must love the Carters or something. I mean, he goes from Peggy Carter to her niece, Sharon Carter, and then by the time Endgame rolls around, he goes back in time to the young Peggy Carter. Like, imagine that conversation in Endgame. So, Steve, what have you been up to? I'm looking forward to seeing more of Sharon Carter as Agent 13. Emily Van Camp is an amazing actor, and apparently her character was on the run during Infinity War and Endgame. So I wonder what she was up to. Sneaky. We've all been in class and maybe you see your high school crush on the other side of the room. You start to daydream, maybe you're putting your pencil through your hair, doing all that cute and you start to daydream of talking to them, maybe even dating them. You can't help it, right? All those hormones flying around through your high school head. High school's wild, man, what a weird time. Cyclops loves the telepathic types, so this exact scenario could get him in quite the pickle if he did anything like this, which he did. So after Emma becomes Scott's therapist to say, some things get heated. So she used her telepathic powers to enter Scott's mind to help him get through past traumas, you know? What a good friend. So naturally they get pretty close, maybe a bit too close. The affair happened in their minds, which is why this is one of my favorites on this list. Like Jean Grey walked in on them in their/her minds, all the minds together. Superheroes are insane, man. So Emma Frost pitches the situation pretty well. She's like, no, we'll be in deep private thought where it's safe to explore these feelings without guilt. And he's like, Emma, I'm clearly betraying my wife, come on, get out of my head. I don't know, I feel like with the psychic stuff, that's like, does it count? Is that cheating? Yeah, that's cheating. If you think about it. I don't know, what a weird loophole. Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014 and James Gunn made the most fun Marvel movie to date. Still, the most fun Marvel movie ever. The opening of the film, we find Chris Pratt's character, Star-Lord, and as the opening credits rolled, we see him dancing rather, to find the orb, which ends up being an Infinity Stone. It's a pretty important orb. So he goes in, introduces himself, does the badass fight moves, and then rockets his way out of there. And after he barely escapes in his ship, the Milano, as soon as his ship starts to fly away from danger, out pops an alien woman from below deck. So we briefly meet Berit, and if you don't remember her from the first movie, that's fine, because neither did Star-Lord. In fact, he didn't even remember she was on the ship. I mean, of all the times to have a one-night stand with an alien, right before a big heist, this guy's crazy. Come on, Quill. We got Thor and She-Hulk. The strongest couple ever? I think so. It's confirmed in Empire Fallout, Fantastic Four #1, that it started off pretty calm and cool, and then the two heroes shared a kiss in the middle of a battlefield, because of course that's where most people end up kissing, and their first date ended up happening in Savage Land. #Savage. So Susan Storm straight up asked Thor if the two of them were a thing, and Shy Thor answered, verily. Also, Shy Thor, how cute. Imagine Chris Hemsworth like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. We could be, who knows, what's it to you? I don't know how to do Chris Hemsworth voice. I mean, the guy must have two hammers. People think that in the MCU, Thor and Captain Marvel will end up together, solely off that one look that they gave each other in Endgame. But my argument is that during that scene, you can slightly hear the words, I have telepathy. It's like, I have telepathy. Pretty on point. But it's in Brie Larson's voice, obviously, I can't do that voice. So I'm assuming the two of them had a quick conversation or shared some type of knowledge between each other, either off screen or in their head. What do you guys think? Who's the perfect other half for the God of Thunder? Is it Jennifer Walters or Carol Danvers? You already know my vote, I don't know. Yep, with the new Disney Plus show getting released soon, I have to save this one for last. This one is hot out of the MCU and I feel like it's a relationship that people overlook. Now I'm talking about the MCU story with these two characters, that's it. These guys should not be together. Like, what? During Civil War, she buries this dude underground when he attacks Hawkeye. Vision also is made out of the Mind Stone mostly, so the same stone that gave Wanda and Pietro their powers in this universe. And maybe that's why they're attracted to each other, but like that's not enough. That's still, like they're sexually involved. Like they, you know, it's weird. The fact that they ended up together at all during any of these storylines, like, how do you have the time for relationships? Like, from Age of Ultron up until Infinity War, there's like no chance or time to hit this off properly. Like, that's the biggest red flag couple. And sure, this last one is just my opinion, but I feel like I'm not alone here. The romance started somewhere between Civil War and Infinity War, but like, what we see on the screen isn't enough to make us believe that they're like a solid, happy, healthy couple. It just doesn't make any sense. Ant-Man and Beetle. Now, of course, whenever I read issues with Ant-Man now, I see it as Paul Rudd. Naturally, I mean, he's so lovable and charming, of course. Paul Rudd lives rent-free in a lot of our heads. guaranteed. I think to myself, what would Paul Rudd do at least twice a day? We gotta talk about it more. Paul Rudd was cast to play Ant-Man in his first MCU debut, of course back in 2015 in Ant-Man. He plays Scott Lang in the movies because I think people aren't really too fond of Hank Pym. Good idea. So when I read the issue with Scott Lang's Ant-Man and Beetle, I was sitting up. I was like, yeah, this is Paul Rudd. He even wrote it in a way where it's like really comedic and the timing between the shots, it's amazing. Heroes and villains hooking up, that should be a show. Screw The Bachelor in Paradise, what is that? I want to see the good and the bad doing the ugly. Every Thursday at 9 p.m, that's when I want to see it. Right before Friday, so we all come in the office and we're like, see who Ant-Man hooked up with? It's like, yeah dude, awesome, unreal. I want it. In Ant-Man Last Days issue 1, we find Scott Lang as he bumps into Beetle at a club. Ant-Man's like, whoa, you tried to kill Iron Man. You're gonna go to the authorities, madam. And she's like, Scott, relax, that was like 3 weeks ago. Hashtag old news. So they start talking, Scott buys her a drink, and then Scott tells her something Cap said. If you want to be an Avenger, you do not sleep with supervillains. And then this is the next page showing Ant-Man just sitting in boxers in bed with Beetle, with the line, I'm so sorry Captain America, which I can just hear in Paul Rudd's voice. Like it's so funny. And also his damn helmet is still on. He just looks so silly. He's got like a 12 pack and he's just sitting there with his helmet. He's like, oh, what a crazy night. And then Beetle wakes up and says, oh, you're still here? That's weird. Weird is the perfect word for it, Beetle. Well guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Taylor McWatters and you guys are awesome. We'll see you next time.